Welcome to 1975, Austin Powers and Forja.
Excuse me while I change. The roller buggy has made me sweaty. Yeah, sweaty.
You see, Mr. Powers, I love gold.
In the year of our Lord, 1848, a foreman by the name of James Marshall was working for pioneer John Sutter at his mill near Coloma, California. While working on the river, he noticed a small glittery metal that would be history in the making. This piece of metal was gold, and although it was meant to be kept a secret, newspaper publisher Samuel Brannan found out and ran through the streets of San Francisco screaming, "Gold! Gold has been found in the river." Confirming what Marshall had found, the news quickly spread like a wildfire all throughout California and some parts of Asia. On the East Coast, however, there were many newspaper editors, preachers, and politicians who were skeptical of these rumors of gold from the Pacific Coast. This skepticism would die down when President James K. Polk had gained enough evidence from his military advisors on the coast and presented the matter to Congress during his State of the Union address on December 5, 1848, when he stated the following passage: "It is known that mines of precious metals existed to a considerable extent in California at the time of its acquisition. Recent discoveries have made it possible that these mines are much more valuable than previously anticipated. Information received from the officers of the Navy confirm the accounts of our military commander in California. It appears from these reports that mines of quicksilver are found in the vicinity of the gold region." James K. Polk, 1848. With this statement, the California gold rush had begun, and with it came the largest voluntary human migration in history. Now, it is worth noting that this was due to the territory itself. California had no established government, which meant that it was a free-for-all. At the start, there was no official way to prove that a claim of gold belonged to someone. This led to a person being in charge of a district in order to do so. Only in California could the average person walk into the gold districts and come home rich, as throughout history, all the wealth had previously gone to the kings and queens. This presented people who wished to improve their fortunes with a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. With financial independence, and many daring gold seekers had come by the thousands to stake their claim. All sorts of people had made the journey: white men and women, immigrants from China, Ireland, and Germany, and African Americans. Most African Americans in particular had come to seek financial independence and upward mobility. What is significant about their story is not their number, but the courage they displayed against the often insurmountable odds of the situation they were in. Now, before the gold rush, a few African Americans like William Leidesdorff had come to seek their fortunes. Leidesdorff became a major San Francisco landowner, which was very rare at the time, and it was most definitely illegal in pretty much any established state. The gold rush represented the start of the first real migration into California by these blacks. About 200 to 300 slaves came to work the gold fields, followed by free African Americans. A total of 600 to 700 African Americans worked in the gold mines. It was also very common for blacks to work alongside whites in the field. Now, whenever a territory became a state in the mid-18th century, there was a huge debate as to whether the state would allow or outlaw slavery. California banned slavery in its constitution, but this was done for more racist and economic reasons rather than humanitarian ones. The delegates believed that by outlawing slavery, African Americans would be discouraged from moving to the new state and would limit competition with whites in the minefields. Despite this, a steady influence of blacks migrated to attempt to strike it rich. Not all the blacks who made the journey worked in fields. Some worked as cooks and laundry washers, ran restaurants and boarding houses, and worked for wages on ranches. Unfortunately, the views towards people of color, whether they were free, a slave, worked in the mines, or worked in a different profession, was that they were not equal and should not have the same rights as the white man. This view was what the landowners in the South had been taught and lived their entire life like. As in the economy in the South required hard labor, and slavery was the backbone. This view would find its way into many of the growing towns. San Francisco, which is today one of the largest and most famous cities in the United States, was one of the most racially diverse areas during the 1800s. The blacks who had settled there were to endure endless harassment, discrimination, and exploitation at the hands of the white man who had also made the journey. Just as they were treated in the South, they were seen as less than human and seen as a cancer to society with only one purpose in life: hard labor. This attitude would lead many whites using the blacks as indentured servants, a term that means a man is subservient to a master for a period of time. So it was a fancier way of saying slavery pretty much, as the blacks would work in this system until they died. In 1852, matters were made much worse when the state of California passed the California Fugitive Slave Law, which was similar to the national slave law but was much harsher. Slaves who were caught in the state of California would board a ship and be sent back to their original owners in the South. Until just recently in the history of the United States, people of color anywhere in the country struggled to gain rights, whether equal to that of the white man or just minimal rights at that. Blacks in California were denied the right to have their children attend public school with whites. This applied to both free blacks and blacks who were slaves. Until 1863, blacks also did not have the right to testify in court in the state of California, and this led to the bringing of African Americans together in 4 colored conventions, which fought for civil rights as well as basic human rights. By 1855, the black population in California began to find sympathizers within the young Republican Party, and slowly more whites expressed their wish for justice to the black man. However, in 1858, a bill that prohibited Negro immigration to California was sent to the state, and as a result, the African American population began to dwindle as they migrated into British Columbia, where new findings of gold were discovered. So, in short, the African Americans who took part in the California Gold Rush essentially faced the same issues and the same odds that any African American up until the mid-1960s faced. Despite this, they showed courage and they never showed any weakness.